Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Tuesday, the 27th of April, comes to you from London. And we start by looking at currencies, then we'll go through stock markets, energy, and a quick look at the COVID stats at the end. So we're seeing here that the dollar index is still in a long-term downtrend, having had to recover the last few weeks. We've really seen that falling off. This is the weekly chart, the daily, and the 60-minute long-term, medium-term, and short-term view of the market. If we're above the cloud, we're bullish. If we're below the cloud, we're bearish. And we've got the corresponding point and figure targets. And these are my tracker charts. I'm using a Refinitiv icon here, but you can run Updata, of course, on lots of different data sources. So the choice is yours. And so we see here, first of all, that the dollar is finding cloud support, the lagging line just bouncing there. So it's looking like that medium-term bull trend is finding the support area and holding. So dollar is there at the moment. Short-term weakness still persists, but if we cross the cloud, we're back into short-term bullish. We've just struggled to do that for the last couple of weeks. Looking at the euro, we're sitting at 120.61. It's coming back to test that cloud from above and testing the resistance on the medium-term chart. We do have downside targets for the euro, although we have had this sharp recovery, which will give us a new upside target. We've got longer term upside targets and one downside target. So the picture is still pretty mixed, and that's quite often the case with currencies that tend not to trend, especially the majors. Looking at the sterling chart, we've got 138.66. This has been trending over the last year, and we are just running sideways for the last several weeks on sterling. And if we look at sterling against the euro, we're sitting at 114.97, fairly flat here, although the trend has been pretty strong again over recent months. Bitcoin is sitting at $54,600, pulled back quite significantly. We've got a new downside potential here if we look at the medium-term chart, and we've got that downside potential of 45%, so that's quite key there. Taking a look at the S&P 500 index, we did just push a little bit higher again last night, holding on to bullish trends on all three time frames, but flattening at the moment. Tested cloud support. Key thing is we just seem to be running out of steam on the short term. The Nasdaq, much the same picture as well. And if we look at the futures, the S&P future is up 0.1%. The E-mini is up 0.12%. The VIX volatility is sitting at 1759, so no real big changes there in the fear index. And Europe is broadly flat. It was flat yesterday. FTSE futures, little change this morning. The DAX in Germany, the cash market, is down 0.1%, and the CAC Quarante is up 0.01%, so up 0.1%. So really little change all round. Japan was down just under 1%, so looking weaker there, short-term bearish on that chart. And again, most Asian markets, as we look at China and Hong Kong, flat. The Shanghai Composite was up very slightly. So stocks generally looking pretty flat. India was actually up 1%. Of course, the COVID story there is the big one, and we'll take a look at that in a minute. And the Aussie market was down very slightly. Just looking at some commodities, keeping an eye on these at the moment, we're seeing really big moves here. Wheat just jumping with multiple upside targets. So wheat looking set to go much, much higher. Corn also just really rocketing. So that's quite key as well. Looking at gold, we're sitting at 1778. We've been sitting steady at this level, but we do have upside targets, so looking still pretty steady. And also if we look at the silver charts we see here, we're holding on there as well. Copper making new highs, really having big moves there, and we see the copper price there just pushing higher and higher all the time. We've got upside targets some 20 to 30% higher on the chart, so copper has further to run by the looks of things. US 10-year yield sitting at 1.58%, back into short-term bullish territory with upside targets, so that's quite key. And if we look at the energy mix now, we've got Brent crude sitting there and just in this range at the moment, so again just struggling to break there, so we're waiting for the break. I did put out a post on LinkedIn yesterday just saying this starting to look a little bit like a lower high. And if we look at WTI, picture is pretty similar there. US nat gas sitting at 279, so that's looking pretty bullish. And we are seeing there that we've got that upside targets to 281, and then 3 is the new target, so looking better there. Coal actually pulling back to 73.60, so just struggling to break higher here. And if you look at emissions, just exhausted at around that 47.70 level. Just couldn't quite make the 48 target that we've been talking about for some time, but we are seeing all the time emissions just climbing that wall of just all the time, just getting higher and higher. But we do have some short-term downside targets. If you're trading emissions, keep an eye on those. MBP, we're seeing here, is looking a little bit better this morning. We've got this bounce on the cloud, but we are just wandering a bit lower. We are neutral on gas products this week because of that push into the cloud, and we've got downside targets and resistance there on the short-term chart, so that's a bit of a concern. Taking a look at German power, we're down 1% this morning. Got a downside target here as well, so just looking a little bit weaker, but we were pretty bullish on power. We had good upside targets, but the sentiment just seems to be changing there. And if we look at Nordic Power, down 2.5% on the CAL, and on the quarterly down 4.8%. So again, not looking so good there either. Taking a look at these COVID stats now, we've got COVID cases in India. We did see a little bit of a fall off in cases, but still well above the 300,000 mark the last few days. And here we see the comparison: 239 cases per million. Germany is 248, so there's fewer cases in India per million population than there is in Germany. But of course, the population in India is massive, and the spread and the growth of this curve is what's really concerning. UK still sitting at 34 cases per million versus 435 in France and 248 in Germany. Looking at the death rate, we're seeing again that just rising a little bit in Germany. If we go back to those cases, we're seeing that rise in Germany continuing is a real worry. And if we look at that in death rate, it's just ticking up there as well. A lot of these charts still heading up. Greece, for example. But if we look at India, of course, this rate is now really worrying. 1.8 versus 2.8 in Germany. Versus 0.3 in the UK, so it's 6 times greater than the UK, but still slightly under Germany. Of course, we're seeing that France is still many times greater than the UK. And if we look at the vaccination rate, better news here in Europe. We're getting to that 30% level. UK and US sitting at 69%, just nudging 70% now. So very big percentages of the population vaccinated there. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.